You've been coming on this program for a very, very long time. And it started, in fact, well before the time when you became premier. And, I remember the day when I said, when you become premier, you're going to keep talking to us. And you said yes, and here you are. And a number of times when we've gathered like this, you've referred to what you call the window of opportunity. Meaning, of course, that you're premier for a short time. You knew it. You weren't pretending that you were going to stay forever. And, you wanted to do as much as you could during that window. And I said to you at the time, sad but true, the window seems to be about 2 terms, about 8 to 10 years kind of for any kind of government. And it just seems that people tire of them. And I said to you, there's a reason for that. And the reason is that you have to make tough decisions. And every time you make a tough decision, you alienate somebody, only because you can't make a decision to please everybody all the time. Recently, the current sitting of the House seems to have you, let's say off-kilter, presenting views and thoughts and initiatives that need extra explanation. And your opposition, of course, is taking great advantage to pick away at the seams that you're sewing together your legislative package. And I want to go back and remind you that I said one thing to you at that time, and it was that which is perceived as real is real in all its consequences. And the perception that I'm getting of the current House of Assembly and the current response from the opposition and the people on the street is the threads are coming out. Is that at all fair?
No, I'll tell you what's fair. A couple of things. It's a real tough time to be a leader right now. Political, business, community. It's a tough time to be a leader. I mean, just look around Atlantic premiers. The two of them dropping off. It's a tough time to be a leader, and it's just the way the world is. I mean, there's a lot of stress in the world right now. It's almost like I consider like this tariff war that's going on. We have the President of the United States declaring economic war in Canada. That's a pretty stressful time. And I think, the legislature is always a difficult time for any sitting government. Meanwhile, we tabled a budget, $500 million in tax cuts. You might not be hearing about too much of that in the media because it's good news. We tabled a budget that will be free shingles vaccine for everyone over 65 years old, free parking at hospitals. You're just not hearing a lot about the good news. So you have a situation where the focus is always on the negative. So you're in the House, you have the media, you have the opposition, and they're always trying to, as you say, kind of pick at the seams. But that's okay. I mean, we have a bigger focus right now. So obviously our first term was very focused on healthcare. We made significant progress in healthcare in almost 4 years, and nationally leading in a number of categories. There's work to be done, of course. We're still focused on that. We'll continue to push forward on that. But now as we look to the reality of the world and the economic challenges we face with, we're right now in tariff wars with the 2 biggest economies of the world, China and the United States, and somehow we're in the middle of this war with tariff war with both of them, and that's a difficult thing. So we have to look at what's possible. So, what can we do? Let's develop our natural resources. But honestly, all of the stuff in the House was kind of noise. It's kind of a lot of the rule stuff is noise. So I'll give you an example. Every 10, 20, 30 years, you have an opportunity to kind of fix the House to make it work a little better, the legislature, that is. And I could go back and show you probably hundreds of quotes of the leader of the NDP saying, legislature's broken, legislature doesn't work, legislature not effective. So we make a few changes that make it more effective. And now it's like, oh, the legislature was just fine. Why would he change this? He has a majority government. He's abusing his majority government. And the talk of the abuse of the supermajority government, by the way, started about a month before we actually won it. As soon, like the media started in on, well, he's going to abuse his power. He's going to abuse. So they set these things up. But to me, it's like I'm very focused on supporting Nova Scotians and what's right, and I can handle. My skin's thick. I can handle the day-to-day attacks that happen because I'm very focused on doing what is right and good and just for the long term. So we'll stay focused. We have an incredible team. We have the most talented caucus probably this province has ever had. Certainly the largest, but probably the most talented. It's very deep. So, look, same old Tim that's been there for, elected for 12 years. I only care about one thing, and that's doing what's right. And if I get it wrong, I'll just say I got it wrong, but it won't be because my heart's not in it.
Well, I appreciate that, and as I say, I give you credit for that before, and I recognize that you're trying to make changes in a setting where people want to find something wrong with what you do, no matter what you do. And I understand too that you have some enemies in the media, but I understand there are people out there looking for a 30-second soundbite that they can use for or against you. And what we do here on this program is give you the chance to respond, give us the chance to ask, and we take 20 minutes. We don't take 30 seconds or 15 seconds. And people here get to hear who you are. The people in the scrum don't. And because some of those people are looking to paint you into a corner. I understand all of that. I understand that you're fighting Donald Trump and an absolute financial war, a tariff war, and as you pointed out, he's declared war on Canada, not just a tariff war, a trade war, but war, no question. And we expect you to stand up and come up with something to deal with. But we didn't expect you to bring fracking back to the table. We didn't expect you to bring back a surtax on non-resident ownership of land in the province. These are issues we've talked about before and put to bed. Then all of a sudden they're back again, and we're scratching our head and saying, why is it? You've got bigger fish to fry than that. So how come?
A couple of things. If you look at the situation with the privacy commissioner that's been in the news, or the opposition's been saying, oh, he's trying to make it so you can't. So there's one of the leading experts in the country is a lawyer named David Fraser in Halifax. And he is quoted in the media oftentimes. If he thinks that something the government did is wrong, he's quoted oftentimes. So on the changes to the privacy commissioner, he actually did, I think it was like a 6 or 8 minute YouTube video saying these changes are needed. But you didn't see that reported in the mainstream. So they pick and choose when they go to the experts and stuff. So, but I accept that. It is what it is. So the deed transfer tax on the non-residents, that has been existence for, we've had that for a while. Way back when that was a thing, there was 2 taxes. There was an ongoing property tax adjustment for non-residents, and there was a deed transfer when they first buy it. We killed the ongoing property tax, but we kept the deed transfer. So that's still there. We'll juice that up a little bit. We're in a housing crisis, and guess what? That does not apply if you buy the house and move here within 6 months. So it doesn't even apply then. But if you're going to buy a piece of real estate here for speculative purposes or whatever, and take it out of the housing stock, then we're going to charge you a non-resident deed transfer tax. That's what we're going to do, and we're doing it. So it's totally fine. It's just a juicing up of something that was already there. But buy the house and move here. That's what we want. That's what we need the housing stock for. On the natural resource development, I guess what I'd say is a couple of things. On gas in particular, all of our natural gas comes from the United States. Every drop of it comes from the United States. That's not a real secure position to be in, especially in this trade war time. Meanwhile, under our feet, we have 200 years worth of natural gas. 200 years worth. Now, you can't even think about exploring for that. Definitely can't think about extracting that. Well, there's a ban in place. So we're going to lift the ban and have the discussion. On a project-by-project basis, there will be full consultations, there will be environmental assessments, there will be every step that already happens for every other type of exploration. So we do mining in this province for lots of things: gold, silver, copper, gypsum, salt. We do all kinds of mining in this province. There are 2 types that have been just banned. You can't think about them: uranium and the gas. So we're saying let's take the ban off, and then we would use the same process that's pretty good and pretty effective for every other type of development for those as well. So I know there's been this narrative created that there's going to be a bunch of drill wells on your backyard tomorrow without any more discussion. And that's just it's not true or fair. There will be a process to go through it. But I think it's time for us to have that discussion. They're fracking in Alberta. They're fracking in all kinds of parts of Canada, and our sons and daughters are going out there and working in it, and we're happily collecting royalties from that through the national system. But we can do it here. We can do it safely, but the very least we owe each other is to examine it. And quite frankly, this is an area where I think we don't even have the luxury anymore of just saying, well, we're not going to do that. We have to have the discussion, and the discussion will be had.
Well, with respect, Mr. Premier, when you say that we need to have a discussion about this and then say we can do it safely, it sounds like you've already made up your mind, and that's the perception thing I'm talking about. And if you put an if in front of it and said, if we have the conversation and if we can do it safely, it would sound better like a decision of the people, you among them. But when you say we can do it safely, it's almost like a pronouncement, and that's back to the perception thing again. We could have that conversation.
Can they do it safely in Alberta but not safely in Nova Scotia? Is that even possible? So, I mean, look, I talk about 200 years worth of gas. Now, some of that we just won't be able to touch. Just won't be able to get at it. Won't be possible. Won't be able to be done safely. But, perhaps to your point, some of it will. The technology has changed so much but we owe it to each other to have the discussion. Imagine saying in this day and age, well, let's not even talk about that. I don't think that's fair. And that's okay. It's I'm the person sitting in the chair, so I've got to make those decisions to some extent. And, we'll make them. And if it turns out that they can't be done safely, then it won't be. If there's anyone in Nova Scotia that thinks as Premier of province or any elected official or any Nova Scotian that I would be willing to take a risk with our water supply or our air just for what? For fun? It's just a silly notion. I'm a Nova Scotian just like everybody else.
And appreciate that too. And again, I'm trying to draw the line in a circle around the perception is the key. And if you wanted to have the conversation, you could do a commission, you could do a study and bring the public into it.
We did that.
We did that, Bill. And I think the answer from the public was no, thank you.
I don't know if it was or not, to be honest. Certainly at the time, there was a lot of public voices. There was loud public voices, let's say. But on a project-by-project basis, those voices, every Nova Scotian will be able to have their say on a project-by-project basis. But just saying we're not even going to have that discussion, that's an odd thing.
Well, it's a fractious discussion, that's for sure. It's fraught with difficulty, fraught with pitfalls, and whichever leader is willing to chair that discussion, in the case right now we're talking about it's you, is a leader that's going to please some people and offend some people. And that goes right back to my point about why does the window close? Because you have to make tough decisions, and some of those decisions are going to offend. And that's the entire point, the sociology, if you will, that I wanted to make today, is that you're doing that with the full knowledge, I think, that these could be decisions that lead to your end as Premier.
I guess if you try to lead by fear, then you're not going to be much of a leader. So what I want Nova Scotians to say is there'll be fulsome discussions on all of these topics, and it'll be focused on the discussion that's appropriate for that community, for that area, for that geology. There's all kinds of factors that impact these things. And I just ask that we have the discussion. And I think that, certainly there are some loud voices against. There's no question about that. But there is an incredible amount of loud voices or quieter voices for. And I hear from them as well who say, I think we should explore this. And certainly Nova Scotians have a lot of history working in the oil fields because we've been going out there for a long time. So I just think that in the amount of issues we're facing as communities right now with the economy and jobs, we're already seeing job losses from just the threat of these tariffs, going month to month to month, is already causing companies to pull back on investment decisions. We're already seeing impact, things that aren't being done, but certainly jobs being lost in other parts of the country for sure, and definitely in the United States as well. So it's an incredibly stressful time, and I get that, and I'm certainly not trying to add stress to people, but I'm just trying to say let's have a methodical approach where we can go through these things and have real fulsome discussions and get to the place that's right for our community. and for our province. And I think we can have those discussions. And I think by not having those discussions, we're doing a disservice to ourselves.
Appreciate that, and appreciate your willingness to have that discussion here right today. And I've been one screaming from the wilderness about Trump and his bully tactic, if you will. And you've been very loud and outspoken about that, too. You've been there. You've gone face to face with people that are supposed to be his officials. But the fact of the matter is you can't talk to Donald Trump. Even if you had a sit down with him, you can't negotiate with him. He's the same guy that tore up the NAFTA agreement in favor of his own agreement, which he threw in the garbage right now just to bully us again. I think there's a golden opportunity, and I think you're leading part of that in Canada. Canadians aren't going to take it, and we're willing to stand up and face him where the rest of the world seems to be cowering behind the bushes. I'm proud of Canadians. We're not going to take it. We're going to stand up at the 49th parallel and say, no thanks, not here. And you've been part of that. I thank you for that. And I wonder, do you have any updated information re the Canadian response?
Look, it's a difficult situation. We love Americans. We have long-standing relationships with Americans, and it's been beneficial for both sides. It's not about Americans. It is, as you say, it's about one person, and that's the president making these decisions. And the impacts are far-reaching across the United States, but certainly across Canada and Nova Scotia as well. So I'm still hopeful that we can get to a no tariff place and move forward. That's going to take some time and some effort. I've said before that the president strikes me as somebody who needs to touch the hot stove to understand it's hot. He's definitely placed his hand right on top. He's just pulled it back a little bit a couple times. We just need him to take his hand away from the stove now, so we can all move on. But the ramifications are significant, and we'll continue to push. And that's why I'm trying to lead the effort on, interprovincial trade, getting rid of those barriers. Nova Scotia is leading the way on that. Gets a lot of national news, doesn't get a lot of local discussion, but it's a very, very significant movement. Trying to push on the buy local through the Nova Scotia Loyal. I mean, we were probably a bit of ahead of our time on that. We didn't execute well on that in the first. We had well intentions, but we didn't execute well. But that's coming now. As well, on just the focus on buying local, being loyal to Nova Scotia. So, there's lots of, we'll find our way through this. There's no question about that. The other discussions will take place for the longer term, but we'll find our way through this. There's no question about that. The relationship between Canada and the United States has survived wars and depressions and all kinds of highs and lows, and it will certainly survive Donald Trump.